Hey everyone, Scott Solari with Realsynch. What is up? I appreciate you watching this video. You're going to get a ton of value. Gary, thanks so much for being here, man. Gary is the founder of Robochimp Technology, an amazing company that works and builds Salesforce out for you. And I know there's a lot to that. That was a very general description of what Gary does, but I appreciate you being here, man. I think our clients are gonna get a lot of value from us talking about, the pros and cons, what Salesforce looks like, all the ins and outs of like why you would go down this path, and of course, and work with a company that is an expert within that Salesforce space. So thanks for being here. Tell us a little bit about who you are, like your background, like how you got to this place in your career.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Scott. I'm excited to be here with you and to talk about one of my favorite things, which is Salesforce. Like you mentioned, I'm the founder of Robochimp Technology. We've been around for about 4 years now, and we're a small team of Salesforce developers, admins, and just overall consultants that help people successfully implement Salesforce or modify their existing Salesforce implementations to help drive success for their businesses. There's 4 of us guys. We're out of Orange County, California, and San Diego. We all work remotely. And the way I like to, the elevator pitch for me is we do the best quality work and we're very reasonable with our prices. And that's actually really hard to find out there right now. A lot of times you're working with these big consultancies and there's tens of layers to them, and it's difficult to get anything done. So we take a lot of pride in the fact that we're all very hands-on and we're good at what we do. So thanks for having me. I'm excited to jump into this with you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And so give me a little bit more about your background. Like before you started Robochimp, what were you doing prior to that? And like what led you to, being like, I want to work with Salesforce? Said not very many people, right?
Right.
Yeah,
I got you. Good question. I came from the insurance world, financial services, insurance. I have a long history of working in that industry. When I was a teenager, my dad started an insurance agency and I helped him build that from the ground up. And it's just been kind of one role after the next, kind of moving up. And I've started several agencies myself. And most recently, I was serving as a CTO for an insurance agency out of Carlsbad. And as CTO there, we decided to go the way of either building our own CRM or leasing some other software. And we looked at, Zoho and HubSpot and Salesforce and all these different options. And what it came down to for us, and really for me as the CTO making the decision on how to budget our money for the CRM project, was Salesforce gave us the ability to fully customize a CRM to our very, very specific needs at a much reduced cost compared to building it ourselves. And I've been a part of building CRMs with developers from the ground up. And on the surface, it sounds like a great approach, but you don't really realize how much goes into maintaining a project like that. I mean, as a software developer, you can appreciate when somebody comes with a toolbox full of tools and says, hey, we're handling a lot of the background stuff for you, just do the building. That becomes really fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I quickly fell in love with Salesforce for that reason. I mean, it handles a lot of the user permissions and the security and the updates and the things that, you'd have to lean on your developers for normally. They just kind of handle a lot of that. And really, it's the way I describe it to people is it's a toolbox more than a CRM. And this toolbox has all the different tools you might need to deliver on customized workflows or automations or customer facing portals that let them interact with the data that's in there or whatever you're looking for,
Yeah. So this is a good direction right now. Like, so, a lot of the people that potentially are watching this right now are used to a CRM that is very confining and puts them in a box, right? Where there's maybe one object that they can use, a contact object, and then maybe a second object like a transaction, but usually that's not even available in the API, right? So a lot of limitations. So talk a little bit about specifically, the customization, from a high level of maybe understanding like how that can benefit the home buyer or seller being able to interact with these different things that you can be doing with a CRM. Let me talk a little bit about that,
Yeah.
if you don't mind.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I ran into that quite a bit in past roles and in working with other people that are migrating away from a CRM to Salesforce in the current role that I'm at. You do run up against some roadblocks when it comes to customization when you're using most of these systems. And that's where Salesforce is a powerful set of tools that let you build out virtually anything you can dream up. So if you find that you're running up against these roadblocks, where I would love to be able to, as an example, have a portal that my customers log into to check the status of X, Y, or Z on, whatever process they're going through with you. Maybe they're purchasing a home. In my case, a lot of times it was purchasing an insurance policy or maintaining one of these elements. Um, if you're working with HubSpot, they've got some tools for that kind of stuff, but you, as we know, do really quickly run up against hard, fast limitations of the software, and you find yourself wanting to build this thing out. And so a lot of us go, well, maybe we should hire some developers. Maybe we should go this other direction. Maybe we should use other tools and try to link them all together. Salesforce is a little different in that it doesn't come pre-configured for you. When you just install it yourself, it's like an empty box and it doesn't really do a whole lot. It's got some pre-configured objects and stuff, and you can put data into it.
Yeah.
But you need to make sure that you've got a guy like me or people on my team. Basically, you want to have a reliable admin or developer or a combination of the two who can help you customize it to accommodate those workflows that you dream up. And
Yeah.
that's one of the most important things about it, is making sure that you, first of all, you know what you're trying to solve in implementing Salesforce, right? Like, what are your problems that you're facing? Put those on a whiteboard and make sure you keep that at the front of your mind as you're going through all this work. Because
I
it's
love
easy to
that.
get,
Yeah.
yeah, it's easy to get lost in the just fun building new things, but you have to remember what the most important priorities are,
Yeah.
right?
Why you're doing it in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
So
oh, go ahead. Continue.
no,
Yeah.
I was just going to say it's definitely a set of tools that will let you deliver on almost anything you can dream up. But remember that those things that you're dreaming up need to be prioritized correctly, right? If you're trying to drive sales, don't get lost down the rabbit hole over here, making something look too pretty or work some certain way. Stay focused on what your objectives are. Right?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, obviously, if you're a single agent watching this right now, this is not for you. Okay. But if you're a large team, which some of the teams that I work with that end up buying a title agency or an insurance company as well, and you're doing you have these different businesses, I feel like Salesforce is an amazing solution for something like that, especially because we know, Gary, within the real estate space, one of the biggest problems that teams are always trying to solve, and even technology they're trying to solve, is how do we improve the buyer and seller experience with visibility, understanding what's going on, communication, all these things. And the reality is, with a lot of the systems, because they're on islands and they're not all talking to each other, it's a pretty chaotic and archaic system right now for the buyer and seller process. How can Salesforce, solve that, within one system? And I think you kind of mentioned, like, having this place where the client can kind of gain visibility, understand what's going on, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the most powerful things that I've learned to appreciate on the developer side about Salesforce is the fact that it's fully API driven. So there's like this technology layer under it. And I'll try to keep this in layman's terms, but it
Yeah.
allows systems to connect to it, almost any system in the world to connect to it and to interact with it, right? So a lot of us have our CRM here, and then we've got our customer facing system here, and then we've got another system for our email marketing here. And there's all these disconnected parts, and it's up to us to connect those dots manually. I have to log into this system to send my emails out, and then when people respond, I go, update their records over here. So with the technology layer that we're talking about, it gives us the ability to actually integrate all of these systems together so that you, your team members, and even your clients can all be logging into one source of truth.
Yeah.
And that source of truth has all the data feeding into it from all these other systems. And now what you can do with that is you can start to automate these processes. And that's where it gets really fun, right? So when you send out an email to a list of people that haven't responded to things in a while, you could set up some automation that puts those people in front of you. You press a couple buttons, it goes out. Once you see who does respond, you want to automatically reply and set up a meeting to talk to them. I mean, all of this stuff can be built out once you've got all your systems talking and, unified in one source. And that's kind of the beauty in what Salesforce brings, I think.
Yeah, it's amazing. All right, so let's say team is like has thought about this in the past, but it's like, oh my God, all I hear is Salesforce. It's super expensive. It could be a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
I don't know what I don't know. I don't even know who to turn to help. Right.
Yeah.
Tell me if you don't mind, tell us a little bit, some stories or experiences that you had of businesses that you've worked with where it's gone really well. And then some of the stories where it's been a little bit of a pitfall and things didn't go well. And then, so people know kind of what to look out for or what to do or
Yeah.
how to approach it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as a starting place for that, it's important to know that Salesforce does seem expensive. And the fact that they run things on annual invoicing or quarterly invoicing makes it feel expensive too, versus paying monthly, like a lot of the CRM options provide. But
Yeah.
when you consider how much power you're getting out of it and how rapidly you're able to build things out to accommodate your workflows, it becomes less expensive feeling over time. I think there's a big sticker shock on the front side, but then once you settle into it and you start to realize all of that value, you go, okay, this is money well spent. So that's important to know. Getting started off, contact Salesforce, go to their website, submit a contact us form, and they'll reach out to you and you can get some quotes and see what that's going to look like. Now, again, they don't install it for you. They'll give you the licensing, but it's going to be up to you to find an implementation partner. And that's what Robochimp does. To help you set it up and configure it, right? I would say to transition over to the second part of your question, the customers that I've seen of ours that have had the most successful results are those who know what problems they're trying to solve. First of all, they've thought about this ahead of time, right? They've planned things out. They know we need a better CRM experience overall. We need to streamline our sales process. We need to have better customer support. Maybe it's better visibility into our data, what customers are doing when we're attempting to interact with them. So they understand those, but then they've also mapped out their processes for these things, how they handle doing things like your sales process. How are you doing that right now? Is it in Excel? Is it in a CRM? What are the different stages? Map that stuff out so that when you start the process of working with an implementation partner and they ask you about your sales process, you know how to answer that.
Is that
when you go
so
into
to jump in, is that something you work through with them too? Because I got to believe that sometimes they come in thinking they understand the process or they have a process, and then you start, questioning them and they start thinking through it and going, oh, maybe it makes sense to do it this way instead of that, is that something that's
Absolutely.
part of the process?
Absolutely. That's a huge part of the process.
Yeah.
And that's why I say it's important to at least put some thought into this ahead of time, is when you actually can answer and say, well, loosely, it's like this. We need to get specific in order to automate these things for you. So we're going to dive into that with you and we're going to figure out, well, what's next? What happens if they do this or that? And
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah.
It forces you.
Yeah.
It really forces you to think about your processes in depth and to
Yeah.
analyze, is this a good practice? Is this an okay practice? How can we improve on it?
And
So
what's the
those,
value in that, Gary? I mean, let's be honest, the value
yeah,
in sitting down and going through that process as a business owner, I mean, that's worth the money right there, because who does that? You have to kind of do this
yeah.
process, and it's going to only benefit your company, right? I mean,
Absolutely. I mean, the more you know about your own business, the better you're equipped to succeed, right? And
right.
it doesn't just force you to look at your sales process, it forces you to look at every piece of your business that you're bringing into Salesforce.
Yeah. Customer
And,
service,
right,
operations, the transaction management part of it,
right.
the data analytic part of it, of understanding what your sales agents are doing, the marketing part of it, how
Yep.
and all this is all one source of truth, which is what you can do with Salesforce, which is amazing. And especially, I feel like a lot of in real estate businesses and working with them for so long, they tend to get the front end maybe the marketing kind of right, but they kind of luck out with that a little bit, I think, just because they're selling something that everyone needs, which is a home, right? Like not to not to take light of that, but the reality is like it's not, you're not creating the need. There is a need already in a sense, right?
Yeah.
And then they have it really dialed in all the way through maybe the closing process, but then a lot of times it slips off, right? And I feel like there's a lot of room for improvement of this person can refer, can buy and sell again, like all these things, and like what that can end up being with automations from Salesforce and like the lifetime value of a client,
100%. I think a lot of us business owners get so focused on closing the deal on the front
Yeah.
side that we can neglect that backside. And it's like we've all heard, it's kind of a cliche saying at this point, but it's true. It's far less expensive and far easier to generate new business out of existing customers than it is to go find new ones.
Right.
But it takes focus on those existing customers. It takes checking in with them. It takes, working together with them to produce those referrals that you're speaking about, or to get that word of mouth, kind of grassroots effect that a lot of us real estate people are looking for, right? It's a saturated market out there. And if we can do any of these things to stick out and to generate new business or recurring business, it's only going to benefit ourselves and our business, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, yeah, understanding that backside of the process after the deal's been closed, how do we support them? How do we nurture them? How do we, you know, put time and energy into the relationship and really build that relationship so that person feels comfortable referring us? Well, all of a sudden, if we've got a CRM that you can customize any way you want, and you want to start focusing on that part of your business more, put some thought into what sort of things can we do? We could
What's
buy them lunch. We
right.
could go out and grab a drink at the end of a work day. We
What
can
sort
do
of
things
data do you start collecting at that point in the process? And I think that's what's so different about working with Salesforce or these other solutions is all of us, like now it's like, all right, what do I need to know about this person long term, instead of like what do I need to know about to get the transaction done? It's different data, right? And like you can customize that, right, with Salesforce.
Absolutely. And I mean, I don't want to beat that too much, but it is true. You can customize it in any way you can dream up. So creating a referral object and putting certain fields in there that help you track referral data and how much business has this person referred and how much did that actually turn into revenue for us in the long term. I mean, just that right there. Yeah. I'm actually working with a client right now. It's a healthcare company out of Orange County, and the bulk of their focus is on that referral business, like you're mentioning. So this is all a topic that's very fresh on my mind, and it's exciting to see it come to fruition for them.
Yeah.
And it's producing this awesome, series of reports and dashboards for them where they can see, which region has which facilities that are referring which business to them. And at a glance in real time, they click refresh and they know where their referral business is coming from, who they should lean into, who they should maybe just kind of keep on the back burner for a bit,
Man, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable the visibility you can gain when you set these things up, right?
Yeah. And I think when we're talking about mapping things out, that sounds like a big lift for a lot of people to go that far into the weeds on our processes and our workflows and our data.
Oh, go ahead.
The benefit there is that you now have that data in your system and you can do these things with it. So it's a one-time process on the front side to get everything in there to think through it. But then you can start dreaming up, using that data to do new things with it. And that's
it's like
really
steps, right? It's steps.
Yeah.
So you start here, get this, get all those processes, and then you start layering in more and more and more. And that's, again, to not beat the dead horse with the word customization, but that's the benefit of it, right? Is you can keep dreaming. Really and the reality is most of the systems that our clients are using right now, they don't have that option. They're boxes, right? And they're good for one certain thing, but they don't have those layers, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah. But I've found with working with some of the CRMs that people are coming from, that they're either sometimes overly specific to an industry or they're too generic, they're too broad. right? And
Yeah.
so it doesn't give you that granular level of control with the steps that you want to take. And because this is such a customizable platform, you can build it exactly where you want it to be, right? And some of us want our day-to-day workflows to be simple. You know, if I'm doing X, Y, and Z every day, I just want it to be a few button clicks. You can make that your reality. Some of us really want to get into the weeds with this stuff, and you can take that approach too, or anything in between.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of the power that we find there. So yeah, man. I mean, going back to that original topic there, we were talking about some of the things you see with successful implementations. The planning, like we just mentioned, is kind of everything on the front side. And then as we were talking about, you know, once you've done that planning, once you've gotten off the ground with it, then you can start to realize the value. And that's when you start to go, oh, this is such a cool system. Now that we went through that process of getting set up this way, we're doing all this cool stuff we couldn't do before. But another thing to keep in mind is that your users have to be happy with the software as well, right? So you've got maybe a small team or maybe a large team, and these people are logging into the CRM every day and they're doing their work. This is what we refer to as, like, you know, customer adoption, right?
Right.
Or employee adoption of the
Yeah.
CRM.
Of course.
If you build it out with their feedback, with their consideration in mind, you're going to be able to produce something that works well for them day to day. You know, so one of the things that I see that's really successful, that produces successful results, is it's not just a singular project manager leading this charge. It's that person who's the owner of it, but they have all the different people, departments, stakeholders involved with this process, bought into this process of improving their CRM experience. And when you gather that feedback and you pay attention to not just the sales process, but the service, the marketing, and these other things, all of a sudden your user adoption rates can go way up and everybody enjoys it. It's making everybody's lives easier. Everybody's more productive, more efficient. You're automating workflows for these folks. Overall, you're going to see a much better experience doing it
Yeah.
that way.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. And then,
Yeah.
is it where the users, you can like limit like how they're specifically using it for their department so that they're not caught in the weeds of all these different objects and all these different places that they can go, right?
That's a great question. One of my favorite things that we deliver on for people is the fact that Salesforce has different apps, is what they call them.
Yeah.
And basically, it's a different view of similar data, but you can limit, let's say somebody's a salesperson and another person's a service user. They need to see very different data when they're interacting day to day with people, right?
Yep.
It's all data that's in this one big system, but the service users are going to want to see the tickets that are being created and what steps have been taken to resolve issues that may come up or answer questions that exist, where salespeople are focusing on conversions and, you know, going after new business. So we'll build an app for our salespeople, we'll build an app for the service people, and we'll build an app for the marketing folks in a lot of cases. That's kind of the trifecta.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, with that, you assign the roles to the different users. You can control what they have access to and what they don't have access to. So you can cause a sales user to see only the sales app, cause a service user to see only the service app and the marketing people. And what that allows for is a highly customized experience for them, where, like you said, no one role is bogged down with all this extra data and extra views of things that doesn't make sense to them. It's not relevant to their day-to-day workflow.
Yeah.
Um,
And it's a
so that's
personality type too. You know, the salesperson is a different personality type compared to the service and the marketing, right? So it's like, you know, some like, you know, you want to keep it more simple maybe for the salesperson. And then, you know,
right.
so like having that control to dictate what that looks like and what they're doing to keep it simple is going to also help the user adoption, right?
Yep, user adoption. And also that goes back to data quality. If somebody feels like there's an appropriate number of steps involved with what they're doing, you know, you're not having to work too hard to get something done, or you're not providing too little data or updates about a certain thing, your data quality becomes really good. And no matter which CRM you're using, data quality is everything if you want to use that data to make decisions down the road or to automate processes down the road. So make your sales users' lives a little easier by streamlining their processes, and they'll actually do what's being asked of them, right? They'll log their phone calls and their emails, and they'll do the stuff that produces results in the sales arena. And the service users, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that all boils down to having good data in the system, right?
Right.
If your data is not being updated, if it's not being cared for, pretty quickly you'll find yourself in a place where you have to make this useful, go in and clean things up, and that's not a fun process. So
Yeah.
if you build out your workflows appropriately, people enjoy using the system. It actually helps them. It's like this holistic thing that comes together all of a sudden, you know?
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So we've talked about how grandiose and amazing this all is. Tell me a little story about what, what people should be avoiding, or where you see things going the wrong direction because of certain things that happen, maybe during the build out process or during the initial phase, or what you've seen with your experience.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd say the pitfalls to look out for here when you're implementing any new system, but especially one that's highly customizable, that can do virtually anything that you want it to. The people that aren't going to have as good of a result and see that ROI as quickly are going to be those that didn't plan it out very well. They didn't think about it too much. They just said, we need to get a better CRM. Salesforce is one of the better ones out there. Let's put that in place, find an implementation partner, and just go. Just make it happen, right? That mindset is not going to get you what you're looking for. You have to have somebody on your team who's willing to invest the mind power into thinking through these things and to
Yeah.
really break it down to its smaller parts. And then there's all these downstream, effects of being thoughtful with your approach. So if you're thoughtful on the front side, that's hugely important. It's going to produce better user adoption. And poor user adoption is another thing that can go south. If things aren't built in a way where the users' lives are becoming easier, and it's friction, and it's not something that they enjoy using, right? Now, there's always some amount of transition that needs to occur when you're
Of
putting a new
course.
system in place. But
Yeah.
um, when they give you that feedback and they're saying, hey, it would be so much better if it worked this way and not that way, put those changes in place for them so that they're happy and drive that user adoption. If your users aren't liking the system they're using, it's not going to get updated. Your data is going to get stale. Everything starts to fall apart at that
Yeah.
point. So there's those things, over complexity. Again, now that's the trade-off with all of this customization stuff. Keep those high level goals in mind while you're building this stuff out. Don't over engineer it on day one, right?
Right.
It's really easy to think, wow, we have this capability to do anything we want right now. Let's go down this rabbit hole and go down this rabbit hole. Keep it simple on day one, knowing that you can iterate on this stuff. So over complexity can certainly cause you to get lost down a path that's not helping your bigger business goals get accomplished, right?
Yeah.
So, and then I think the most important piece, just for longevity's sake, is making sure that you have somebody reliable available to help you with ongoing maintenance and customization as support. So every business evolves over time, and if you're not evolving, you're growing stale. So you want to have a piece of software that you're running your business on that evolves with you, right? So have a good, reliable CRM administrator or a consultant you can call on, or even if it's just a guy on staff who's like learning Salesforce as you go, that's okay too, because that's how a lot of us get started in this, right?
Right.
But have somebody whose job it is to continue to iterate on what you've built, make it better, tweak it. That's hugely important. I think a lot of people don't know that going into this, and it is kind of an ongoing, piece of overhead for your business, if you will. But if you anticipate that and this is a living, breathing system that's going to change over time, you'll have the right mindset going into it, and it will help you be successful in using a tool like this or a set of tools like this.
Yeah.
So I would say, just to put a bow on that thought too, the thing that we need to see with all these businesses that become successful is an appropriate amount of integration with their systems. I know we touched on that a little bit earlier,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, you have the ability to bring all of your data into Salesforce and to help your system be as frictionless as possible, right? So choose which integrations you want to feed the data from into Salesforce and how you want to interact with that, and then act on those things, right? The most important things are going to be your marketing, your sales, your service tools that you're using, things like that in many cases. Um, so don't get lost on just doing a partial integration or no integration at all. Know that you'll want to bring that data in so that you can have a unified place to not just interact with it, but visualize it and make decisions based on what's going on and who's doing what. So the integration piece, I'd say, is hugely important, often overlooked. And Salesforce makes it really easy to integrate with other pieces of software. So
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Gary, this has been very, very insightful. If someone's like interested in talking more through this, or they think maybe this is something they want to take their company in this direction, what do you recommend? How would they get in touch with you? What step do they take to learn more and really get that 10,000-foot view of what it would take from having that project manager in place, having, knowing that they have to get the team buy-in, knowing that this is a long-term thing that they're going to continue to have to work on? What do you recommend they do?
I mean, as a starting place, know that you're going to have to secure the licensing through Salesforce and have a good, solid implementation partner. And so go online, type in robochimp.tech, contact us, send us an email, or find somebody like us if you have a project that's more appropriate to work with a different consultancy for some reason. But find somebody you trust. We're
Yeah.
really good at what we do. Our prices are really good. I would love it if you called me. But if it's not me, make sure you've got a partner with you in that regard that you can trust, who's good with their communications, provides weekly updates to you at least, right? Is quick with the work that they're doing, and can help take all these complex concepts and break them down into just conversational pieces. Like, hey, let's talk about this process this week. We're going to start working on it next week. A good implementation partner will help you with that side of things. They'll help guide the process. And like you mentioned earlier, that's a big part of this job. And that's something I love about it, is that I get to go in and learn all about these different businesses and deconstruct it and go, okay, what's important? What do we go solve first? How do we prioritize this stuff? So find a good implementation partner and talk to Salesforce, get some pricing. That implementation partner will help guide you through even the licensing process. But they'll start right away on the planning and the prioritization of things and help guide you down that roadway to a successful implementation.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's huge ROI. The amount of little holes that you may have in your business right now are going to be identified and solved as you go through this process. So it's a pretty amazing thing. Gary, I appreciate so much your time, man. If you want to leave anyone, the people watching, anything else with them before we go?
Check us out online, robochimp.tech. We got a cool little website. We're a small team. We'd love to help you guys. And if you've just got general questions, our phone number's on the site. Give us a call, shoot us an email. We're more than happy to help out. And I'd love to hear from you guys. So thank you, Scott, so much.
Yeah, thank you. Scott Slar with Realsynch. And if you guys need anything, there'll be some information below to connect with Gary, and we'll talk to you soon.